invitados muy especiales, dos de las personas más cercanas a él. Y tenemos en el panel a todos los past presidents y, de PIALAT, a quienes agradezco que se conecten con nosotros. Creo que también se va a conectar en un ratito Marco Ascanio, futuro presidente de PIALAT. Le agradezco infinitamente a la Sociedad Colombiana de Ortopedia su apoyo logístico. Sé que vienen de un fin de semana muy difícil con nuestro Congreso Nacional, pero aquí están con nosotros. Y hoy tenemos una anfitriona súper especial, una proveedora del método Ponseti desde hace muchos años, instructora, profesora. Gaby, bienvenida. Welcome.
Gracias, Sonia.
Gaby Morales is a doctor from Mexico, and she is going to be our host today. So welcome, Gaby.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias por esta invitación y por esta rifa tan maravillosa. Muy bien, procedo a presentar al doctor. Al doctor Morcuenda creo que no necesita presentación, él solo es el padre de cada uno de estos hijos aquí conectados, amigo de cada país al que toca, presidente, perdón, de lo que es la Ponseti International. Y pues no puedo decir otra cosa que gran amigo, instructor, inspirador y profesor de este gran método que nos ha enseñado a todos. Principalmente, pues vamos a iniciar con la presentación del hijo del doctor Ponseti. Bienvenido, un placer conocer a alguien que represente eh, una especie de acercamiento real con el doctor Ponseti. William E. Ponseti, B.S., Arizona State University, 1966. Presently living in a suburb of Sacramento, born in Iowa City, Iowa, in 1944 to Ignacio V. Ponseti, MD, and Mary Bell Newman Ponseti. Upon graduation from Arizona State University, began a career with Anaconda Cooper Company in the wire and cable division. Later moved into fiber optics multiplexers, was a regional manager with GA, where implementation of modern technology was introduced to public and private electric utility. Retired from GA in 2012, married, father of two, grandfather of four, and great-grandfather of two. Aside from enjoying a fulfilled career, participated in athletics and water sports, competed in snow ski racing, which was introduced to him at age 4 by his father. I'm not surprised. Also competed in water skiing. Great fulfillment comes from family activities and interaction with friends, which are a value learned from his father. Welcome, William, for this opportunity to meet you and to meet some personal experience about your father. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the introduction, and it's a great honor to be able to speak to you today on my father's birthday, and to not just honor him, but the accomplishments that were achieved during his tenure as a doctor. And those of you who are carrying the torch forward, I'm sure he much appreciates that, because it's the most important medical work I can imagine to be done. And I just can't imagine to be born as a crippled child who would have to crawl or make his way through life in a very compromised fashion, and to be able to walk and run and play again is and as an adult too. I mean, it's just tremendous to be able to do that. I want to apologize for not being able to address you in Spanish. Now, why doesn't a son of a Spaniard speak Spanish? That's a very good question, but there's a very good answer that my father gave me. when he was a boy growing up in Minorca, out in the Mediterranean and the Balearic Islands, they spoke Mallorcan or Catalan. And he did not know Spanish until he went to school at age 6. He had to learn Spanish as the other children in the neighborhood and so forth did. And when he had to leave Spain after the Civil War, the language of Franco was Castilian Spanish. And he was not going to teach his son Franco's language because Franco was the reason he had to leave his country, because all officers were either jailed or executed after the Civil War, and he was a captain in the medical corps, and he may have been jailed or executed. So Spanish wasn't an option, and he felt that if he taught me Catalan, it's so provincial, it wouldn't do me much good. So I learned nothing from him as far as languages go, but I learned so much otherwise. I want to know, do I need to speak more slowly, or is everyone very fluent in English?
We're understanding. That's fine. Thank you.
All right. So I have notes here that I made just so I could stay in sequence of his life, because I could jump around otherwise, and I'd like to kind of stay in a chronological pattern. My father had some extremely admirable values. He was very dedicated, as you can imagine, and very directed and focused. He was extremely bright, and he was very wise, and he was a very kind man. He was honest and very, very charming. He was just a very nice person to be around. He had many, many, many friends, and he had a very good personality. He loved to dance. He and my stepmother, Helena, they were married for almost 50 years. They danced. They had a dance club they belonged to. I remember going to Spain with them in, I think, 1991. I went several times with them. And we went to the cathedral in Barcelona, and there was a group of people celebrating Sunday, and they were dancing the sardana outside the cathedral and the square. And what do you know? They joined the party, and they both knew the dance, and it was just wonderful to see him enjoy life like that. He was generous with his knowledge, and he was also eager to share his passions. One of his big passions in life was hiking. And when I went on a hike with him, which we did on our vacations most of the time, we'd go to areas like Canada in the Rocky Mountains or Colorado and hike in the mountains. It was an education to go with him. He knew the geological formations and expanded my mind by teaching me what sedimentary rock was and so forth. The flowers, as a child hiking in the Pyrenees, he learned all the Latin names of the flowers, and of course he never forgot them. So it'd be walking along and say, "Oh, what a beautiful columbine," and he'd say the Latin derivative of the flower. It was educational and wonderful to participate in this. And so life was really a learning experience. Our hiking was really a learning experience. He focused on his interests, and his interests were very, I'd say, eclectic. He loved medicine. He was very, very dedicated to medicine, as you can imagine. He loved classical and modern art, classical music. He loved to read, and of course, hiking that I mentioned. And he loved his family and friendships. And he nurtured his friendships, and he had friends throughout the world, many, many, many friends in many, many different countries. And he gave me some fatherly advice once when I went to him and asked him, I said, how I have some extra money. I'm in college now. I'm earning some money. I'd like to invest it. I said, can you recommend something? So I was at his home in Iowa, and I was living in Seattle at the time. And so he said, okay, let's sit down at the table. And he took out a pad and wrote down stocks and bonds and savings accounts and real estate. And he took his pen and put it hard on the table hard and said, Bill, he said, invest in family and friends and you'll be a wealthy man. And, I can't imagine a better advice from a father to a son is just that. It's basic. You're wealthy when you have friends. He read a book every week, and his subjects that he read were like history, important biographies. He was always thirsty to learn. He read about astronomy and other sciences. And one of his friends at the University of Iowa was Professor James Van Allen. You may have heard of the Van Allen belt, the ozone layer. Anyway, he was an astronomer and a physicist, and they were good friends. And Dad could hold his own with someone like that on a totally different subject than what he was trained in, although because he read so much and he never forgot anything. I went to boarding school for a year while I was in high school, and at homecoming, he visited the school and for the weekend. And one of my classmates was Hubert Humphrey's son. Hubert Humphrey, as you may or may not know, was a U.S. senator for many years, and he also ran for president of the United States later. He didn't win, but he ran for president. He was a very good man. And he and my dad connected there somehow, and they were together like two peas in a pod the whole weekend talking politics and other things, I'm sure. Dad was born in 1914. Excuse me. He was born in 1914 in the island of Minorca. And at age 4, they moved to Mallorca. His father was having trouble with his watch business in Minorca and thought he could get a better business climate in Mallorca. And so at age 11, his father still wasn't doing well and had an opportunity to move to Barcelona and work as a watchmaker in Barcelona. And I'm not sure if it was by himself or with a firm that he worked for, or both. But my father, when he was a young boy, learned manual dexterity, and he credits his father for this because my dad was repairing watches when he was 11 and 12 and 13 years old, and he learned how to work with small pieces and parts. And I think even though he had hands like mine, which were big hands, he was a very good doctor at operating, I'm sure. He loved his mother very much, but his father was rather a difficult individual, he told me. And he wasn't comfortable to be around. I can elaborate a little bit on that because, I'll do that a little bit later, because I want to tell you that a friend of my father's, another classmate, had a father who was interested in opera and classical music and art, and introduced my father to those, as his parents were not involved in the classics at all. And my father loved this. And this is at age of 12, 13, 14. And so he hiked extensively in the Pyrenees, and he went to the opera house in Barcelona. And a little later in life, he met Picasso. And later in life, when he was in Spain, out in Mallorca, the artist Miro was ailing somehow, and somebody suggested that he see Miro. So he met Miro and treated whatever it was. And so that's where his love for art and music and hiking began, was in Barcelona through a friend's father. And this friend and the father and my dad would go to these, go hiking and go to the opera and so forth. My father was very bright, as I mentioned, and he finished what is the equivalent to our high school at age 15 and received a cash scholarship to the University of Barcelona. And his father said to him that, I'm going to take that cash that you were just granted for your school because I need it for my business and my family, and you'll have to make your way in life another way. So what does a 15-year-old boy do when his scholarship is taken away and he doesn't have money for the university? Well, he was a mathematics genius, and he got a job teaching mathematics at night school to adults at the age of 15. And he earned money for tuition and books doing that. And when he was gone in the evening, his father would ask his mother, where is Ignacio? And his mother would say, he's at the library studying, when indeed he was teaching class. His father and mother ended up splitting up. His father left the family not long after that. He went to the University of Barcelona and finished the 4 years at the university, finished in 3 years. And so at the age of 18, he graduated, and he was the top of his class. He'd never had anything but an A. And so he decided that, well, initially he was going to be a mathematician, but he figured out that mathematicians don't make much money. They are relegated to a university, or perhaps in Spain, maybe a junior college to teach. And he thought, maybe it'd be better if I became a doctor. I like biology a lot, and so I think I'll become a doctor. So he enrolled in the medical school and finished medical school just before his 21st birthday, which was a few days before the Civil War broke out in Spain. You probably know somewhat of the history of the Civil War in Spain, but anyway, he was a young doctor in the war, often operating in makeshift conditions right behind the front lines. He was in an ambulance one day, and it was hit by a bomb, and it killed the driver, it killed his patient, and he was injured. He had a broken arm and some lacerations, but he survived that. He's told me he often operated 24 hours a day on soldiers, and his back would get so tired of leaning over the table and operating. They lashed a board. The nurses would lash a board to his back with rope, so it would relieve some of the pain in the back. At the end of the war, after it was a horrible war, brother against brother. It's anyway. At the end of the war, he, since he knew the mountains in Spain, he organized some evacuations of military personnel and prisoners, and patients on mule trains. And he knew hideouts, knew the paths, knew of the Pyrenees, and their destination was to take officers and patients out of Spain so they wouldn't be jailed and or shot by Franco. And so he did this, and they'd move at night because the planes would spot them in the day and strafe them. And so they hit out in day and then moved at night. And he did this a number of times. I understand Marcel Marceau did the same thing with evacuating people. Interesting, at lunch in 1991 when we were there visiting Spain. We went to Mallorca and we had a lunch at a restaurant. I remember it was named Can Pep, the House of Pep. It was right on the beach in the Mediterranean, right in the Mediterranean Sea in Mallorca. And it was a small restaurant open to the beach with maybe 10 tables. And the husband cooked and the wife served the tables. And at that lunch was a first cousin once removed of his. He had gone to her mother's wedding with his grandfather in a horse and buggy when he was a boy. And she lived in Mallorca. He'd stayed in touch. And she brought her husband along, who he hadn't met. And so they were talking Catalan at the lunch, and I'm sitting there enjoying the fish and the wine. And my father looked at me and he said, "Bill, I want to tell you something. You have to hear this." He said, "This gentleman sitting across the table from me, who is the husband of my cousin, was in Franco's army. He was a resident of Mallorca," my dad explained. "But at the beginning of the war, Franco sent troops over to Mallorca, took over Mallorca, and the young men who were in Mallorca were told that they could join Franco's army, and if not, it's the end." So he joined Franco's army. So Dad went on to explain that his assignment, this man's assignment at the end of the war, was to, with a squad of soldiers, was to go into the Pyrenees and track down this doctor who was taking politically influential people, military people, and patients by mule train across the mountains out of Spain into France. Isn't that interesting? What a coincidence! Of course, that was in 1991, so it was a good discussion. Something else happened that trip. We were in Barcelona. I was with Dad and Helena, and we were in a taxi. Helena and I were in the back seat. Dad was in the front seat next to the driver. And he said to the driver, he turned around and he said, "Bill, you have to hear this." Because he said, "I just said to the driver, I see your license on the dashboard of the taxi. You have a very unique last name." He said, "During the Spanish Civil War, I operated on a colonel in the Republican Army." And the fellow said, "My God, you must be Dr. Poncetti." And so this taxi driver was 55, 60 years old at that time while we were in the taxi. And he was a young boy in the Civil War. And his father came home and bragged about how he was brought back to life by this miraculous doctor. He said, "My body was blown apart, and this doctor put me all together." And so then my father asked him, "Oh, what happened to your father at the end of the war?" He said, "Franco executed him." While he was in medical school in Barcelona, one of his mentors suggested to him that this was when it was obvious he was leaving. That's not during medical school. It was, let me back up. While he was in school there, he told one of his professors in the medical school that he wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. And the orthopedic surgeon said, "You must go to the United States and go to the University of Iowa, go to Harvard." And there was a third university that he said, one of those three universities are the best universities, and try to get to one of those. So he went to this concentration camp or tent city in France at the end of the war and was there for several months. And he was a doctor, so he was helping with the medical needs there. And he took a ship to Mexico after Mexico sent over some people to interview the Spaniards. They wanted to populate Mexico with some doctors and stonemasons and carpenters and dentists and get some good people out of Spain to go to Mexico. So Dad took advantage of the opportunity to go there, and they told him that he would be able to go to work for a doctor's firm in Mexico City, and a doctor's practice in Mexico City. Well, when he got to Mexico City, there was no work. The doctors didn't want to dilute their practice, and so he couldn't find a job. But he heard that there was an opening in a city named Chapultepec, several hours outside of Mexico City. So he took the train and then walked from the train station to Chapultepec and found the mayor of the city and said, "I understand you need a doctor." And the mayor said, "Yes, we do need a doctor." He said, "The last doctor we chased out of town because we had people in our residents were dying of typhoid. And we told him if one more dies, we'll kill him." So he left. So the mayor interviewed my father and said, "Well, this is the job, but if you take it and you people die, we'll kill you." And my father said, "I'll take it." He said, "I know how to treat typhoid." So he took the job, and he said he needed a haircut when he got to the city. So he said, "I need to go find a barber." So we found the only barber in town, and went in and sat down on the chair, or was ready to sit down on the chair. And the barber said, "Oh, no, I don't know you. I can't cut your hair." My father said, "What do you mean you don't know me? You're a barber and I have hair that's very, very bushy and I need a haircut." The barber says, "No, I won't cut your hair." He said, "I don't know you." He said, "We have to sit and talk." So my dad says, "Okay, we'll sit and talk for a few minutes. Then I want a haircut." So they talked a little bit, and the fellow said, the barber said to my dad, "Do you like poetry?" My dad says, "Yes, I do like good poetry." And he said, "Well, I want you to take some poetry of mine, take it home, and then read it tonight, and then come back tomorrow, and we'll discuss my poetry. Then I'll give you a haircut." All right, that's the deal. So my dad took his poetry, and my dad said it was very good. The fellow was a very good poet. And so he got a haircut, the best haircut he said he ever had. So for transportation, he first of all got a motor scooter, but it slid out on the volcanic soil and so forth. So he got a horse, and his horse was his mode of transportation. And so he made calls, house calls, and he made a monthly trip to Mexico City. Two of the Indians from the village would jog alongside his horse, and he would put pesos. He would wrap them in T-shirts and underwear because there were bandits on the trail, and so he'd put those in his saddlebags. And the two Indians would jog alongside his horse for 4 or 5 miles to the train station, and then take the horse back. He'd take the train to Mexico City, get medical supplies, and then return at a predetermined time. And the Indians would meet him at the station, and he'd go back. And he needed to save $1,000 in order to be admitted into the United States. That was the immigration policy at the time. And one of the problems was that he was paid in beans and chickens and sometimes pesos and vegetables, but he managed to save what he could. And so his work there was mostly delivering babies, he said. But every Friday and Saturday night, some of the fellows would get too drunk on pulque, which I believe is made from cactus. And he said once in a while there was a knife fight or two, so he had to suture a few knife wounds. But he grew to like these people very much, and nobody died of typhoid. And so after a year, he'd saved $1,000. So he bid the Indians in the village of Chapultepec farewell. He gave his horse to one of the fellows there after they took him to the train station. And he went to the bank in Mexico City. And when he went to withdraw his $1,000, the peso had been devalued 2 to 1. So he only had $500. So what do you do? Well, so he took the train back to the train station, walked to Chapultepec, and says, "You have me back." And so it took him about another 8 or 9 months to save another $500, and he had $1,000 then. So he bid them farewell this time. He went to the bank, withdrew his money, and took a 3-day bus trip to Iowa. Iowa was his first choice, primarily because of a gentleman, a doctor, I believe he was head of orthopedics at the University of Mexico, Juan Ferrell, and also his mentor at the University of Barcelona. And the reason was because Dr. Arthur Steinler, who was from Austria, who was a well-known, well-published orthopedic surgeon and was head of the Department of Orthopedics in Iowa. Where was I? So he said that taking the bus through Texas and up to Iowa was a 3-day trip. And he noticed how beautiful the fields were. And he noticed the dogs weren't showing their ribs. They weren't skinny. And he thought, this is wonderful. This is United States. My goodness. This is, he felt when he got to Iowa, the fields were green, and he just thought he'd gone to heaven. And so he didn't know English. When he knew Italian, he knew French, he knew Spanish, he knew German, he knew Mallorcan and Catalan, but he didn't know English when he went to Mexico, and he needed to learn English. So while he was in Mexico City, he picked up a newspaper written in Spanish, and he got the same one published in English. And so he taught himself English while he was in Chapultepec. But no one ever taught him how to pronounce anything. So when he got to Iowa, and with his letter of introduction from Juan Ferrell, I mentioned he was the head of the Department of Orthopedics at the University of Mexico, and he also had clubfoot and walked with canes. And this differs a little bit from Tom Cook's book, and this is what I recall that my father told me. He met Arthur Steinler, and Steinler knew Spanish, but he wasn't real fluent in Spanish, speaking it. He could read Spanish, but anyway, they were talking about my dad's wishes to become a resident, and so the Spanish didn't work. My dad's English was so poor that didn't work. But Steinler was from Austria and spoke German. My dad spoke German, so we had a common ground. So they spoke German. And in Tom's book, he said that my father was given a place in the department as a result of Juan Ferrell's letter. But my dad told me it was a letter of introduction to Steinler, and Steinler told him that there's no room in the department. We have a full complement of residents, and I can't help you. He said, before you go on to Harvard or another university to see if you can become a resident there, he said, I need some help with a paper I'm delivering. He said, I'm delivering a paper in Colombia in a few weeks or a month, and I need help with my delivery in Spanish because I have to deliver it in Spanish. So if you will help me with that, I will give you free room and board. You can stay in the residence quarters, and then you can go on to Harvard. My dad says that's a fair enough deal. Well, you can imagine after working with my dad for a few weeks, who had just finished 3 years of war surgery. I mean, he was probably a very accomplished surgeon at that point. Steinler realized what value my father would be on his staff there and as a resident, and made room for him. So that's what I remember being told by my father. So during his residency, I think quite early on, Steinler asked my dad to recall the patients that had been operated on for clubfoot. So they did recall the patients, and the people in Iowa don't move a lot, so most of them were available to, excuse me again. I have sinus issues, so I'm sorry. So they recalled the patients, and most of the adults who are 25, 30, 35 years old who have been operated on, they had arthritic feet and painful feet, and it was not good, as you can imagine. So I don't know if it was a further assignment from Steinler or if my dad decided to take this on himself, but he did thought I could like to do some research on this, and maybe there's a better way. And he got a hold of a stillborn fetus with club feet, and that was the answer that he needed to move forward. And through that, and through continually researching this and moving the foot, and he figured out that there's a better way. Maybe this will work. And he let's see here. Yes, Dad felt that no matter what it is, a broken arm or a foot, if you point the body in the right direction, it has very good healing capability. And maybe you understand what I'm talking about. I think you probably know better than I. But he said, too many operations are shish kebab, joints and bones, and he used that word shish kebab with too much hardware and so forth. And he said, you just give it a direction, give it the correct direction, which he did with the foot or a broken arm. He said, just put it, align it correctly, and it will heal. So it was successful, and it got his procedure took a few changes, little changes. The tenotomy, I believe it's called, is one of the later ones, and I don't know how much later, but it wasn't initially done. And it was successful. It was successful in Iowa, but no one else wanted to believe he had a solution. And he gave papers and talks, and it wasn't accepted very widely at all. And not until the internet came out. And then the mothers and others who had children with, the parents of children with clubfoot gave the results on the internet, and they all of a sudden it expanded. The acceptance expanded. But Dad was called crazy by some doctors for doing what they thought was silly. I mean, but the results are obvious. In 1984, Dad retired from the department at the age of 70. They wouldn't allow a doctor to do surgery at that point at the University of Iowa after 70. And so he retired. And there was a retirement symposium for him. They arranged to have, I think, a panel of 4 other doctors, or a total of 4 from around the world. There was a lady, doctor from England, I remember, and a fellow from Harvard. And it's quite a while ago, but it was a symposium on scoliosis, and 4 or 5 medical schools from around the Midwest attended this because it was a very important group of doctors who got together to discuss this malady. And over half of his residents, who were now doctors, came back to honor him at his retirement. And I remember one of the doctors came up to me and he said, "You know, I remember making rounds with your father and going into a ward of babies who were crying and fussing." And he said that just the presence of your father walking in the door would have an aura over the room, and the babies would quiet without him saying anything, just his presence. During his retirement, as I said earlier, he loved art. He took a master's in art history from the University of Iowa. He also took courses in painting, and just quite a good artist. So after a couple of years of being away from school, from the medical school, he went to, I believe the head of the department at that time was Reg Cooper. And he went to Reg Cooper and he said, "Reg, I have some unfinished business." He said, "I'd like to come back and do some more work." So he was made professor emeritus, and that's when he wrote the book that you may have seen, the Congenital Clubfoot Fundamentals of Treatment. And then he treated babies, and he traveled and gave seminars and demonstrations, and doctors and technicians would visit the University of Iowa, and he would train them in the technique. It was about a 2-week process, he said, to teach it adequately. And he made people very comfortable, people meaning the parents of babies. He gave them a sense of confidence, and he gave them a sense of peace. And he played Mozart for the babies when he was setting the cast. He said that calmed the babies down who were fussing. And I remember he told me about 2 parents of a newborn baby with horrible club feet, and they came to him, and she was in tears, and they were just both so worried. And he looked at them, and he looked at the baby, and he said, "Oh, what beautiful feet! I can fix them." Um, he was very frustrated because he wanted to find the root cause of clubfoot, which hasn't been done yet. And he felt he could, but he felt he was close. But anyway, it eluded him. His dedication and insight and perseverance is it's resulted in one of the most important achievements in medicine. And thank goodness for you folks. You're carrying the torch forward that he lit, and he'd be very happy and proud to know that. I have several examples of people who are born with club feet who have become very successful that you may know of, but they would have been crippled people or impaired people, but have gone on to great achievements. And that's like Christy Yamaguchi, who was born with club feet. She was an Olympic gold medalist. Mia Hamm, international soccer star. The Troy Aikman, the NFL Hall of Fame quarterback. And I'm sure there are many more. But again, in closing, I want to say that I know he's, again, very grateful to you for being interested in babies and adults with clubfoot and moving forward and correcting this malady, which is a fairly simple operation, he said, or procedure, not an operation. So I want to thank you for your time and the honor to be here on my father's birthday. And this is the, 111th birthday of his. And so I'm finished, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And if you have questions for me, feel free to ask anything, and I'll try to answer them.
Gaby?
Thank you, William, for this experience that you shared with us. It's very precious and value for us to meet some things that some details that we don't know, and we are pretty sure that it was part of the development of the method and the life of the Dr. Poncetti. Thank you a lot. We continue.
Sure.
Now, Dr. Morcuende, we have some questions from the auditorium. Do you want to share these questions, please?
Hi, Bill.
Hello, Jose. How are you?
Doing good. Nice to see you.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see. So one question is, how did Dr. Poncetti face the first incredible reactions from pediatric orthopedic surgeon community about the method?
Well, it wasn't accepted initially, and he was very, very frustrated with them because it was obvious to him that the results were better than surgery, and that he felt that it fell on deaf ears whether the doctors wanted to operate because the remuneration was so much higher than 5 plaster casts, or whether it was because of tradition that operating is the way it has been done, so that's the way we will continue. But he was very upset and frustrated.
So the other question is, what was a memorable advice from Dr. Poncetti for life?
Well, the one I remember that I gave earlier, that he loved friends. He loved people. He loved people who, he loved Iowa. He loved the University of Iowa. I gave him the opportunity to do the research that was necessary for him to accomplish what he accomplished. And he loved like the tree surgeon who cut his trees outside. The fellow was a professional. My father respected and honored that professional. He liked people who were accomplished at anything, who worked hard at whatever they did. It doesn't have to be a technical profession. The farmer, he respected the farmer in Iowa very much. And the advice that he gave me was, I think, born from his experience of his love of his mother and his brother, and his family and my family, and friends that he developed, the friendships that he developed throughout the world, throughout Iowa, throughout the United States, throughout South America. Everywhere he went, he had friends. And he commanded, I think, a respect. He didn't ask for it. He was a very humble man, but through his work, everyone respected him. He was very published. He was accomplished in the medical profession, and he was an innovator. And when he told me, he said, "Bill, nurture friends and family, and you'll be a wealthy man." For me, that's the best advice I ever got from him. And so you respect friends, respect family, and spend time with them and nurture the relationships. And that's the answer to that gentleman's question or that lady's question.
Thank you. I think those are the questions that we have.
All right. Here is a painting that was done. Helena, I don't know if it's too close or too far away.
That's good.
Is it good? All right. That's of my father. This is an original oil. And the artist was commissioned by Helena to do 2 oils, one for me and one for the University of Iowa. And they're almost identical. It's the same pose. It's just because it's original. Each one has a little bit of difference. But that's a picture of him, or a painting of him. And here is a picture of him enjoying. I don't know if there are reflections off of it, but this is a picture of him in the mountains, and I think it's in Spain. I think they took a car ride to that because he's in street shoes and a tie, but he's on top of a mountain, and I can see his expression. He's just enjoying nature and the wonderful air and the beautiful mountains he's in. Here's another picture of him, younger, handsome man. And so this is, of course, at the hospital, it looks like. And it's, you know, having a father like he is, or having my father who he was, is a great honor. And I marvel at what he accomplished. And he had, excuse me again. He had some setbacks. I mean, how would you like to have your scholarship taken away from you when you're ready to go to college? And he found a way. You know, he always seemed to find a way. And he had a lot of tenacity and drive. And I respect that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet.
There are also a lot of messages saying thank you to you.
Well, thank you.
For us, as I told you yesterday, your father is very, very important. And we, every year, since I don't know how many years, we honor his name. And being today with you, it's very important. I think Dalia is today in charge of the dedication. Dalia,
Well, thank you.
you
Thank you.
are the one always to make honors.
I'm not sure that I can really put in my words all the honor that we share here, being with Bill
Well, thank you.
and Jose. You
That's
both really represent not only the family feelings, but also the medical feelings for something that I'm sure that it's, and please don't laugh, but this is the best of the world for the physicians, the pediatric orthopedic surgeons. We cannot be more happy. We cannot be more thankful for Dr. Ponsetti's teaching. He
Well,
really made a change in the world for
yes.
the kids through our hands, really.
Yes, through that.
Thank you so much for being with us, sharing that many, many anecdotes. I'm Sonia, please forgive me, but I need to say something that it's probably a stupid idea as always. With Jose, we talked about this many, many years ago. And I think we should all make a contribution on Ponseti's legacy, that it's not in the clubfoot really field or not the more important. We should do a book with our memories with Ponseti. Each one of us should pick up a part of our lives that was influenced by your father. And Jose, you remember we talked about this. Maybe this is the time that we should do it because it's really important. And the legacy is not only the clubfoot treatment. It's a man who was through many, many, many difficulties in life, and he was able to find something that it's really important for the kids in the world. So thank you very much, Bill. I'm sorry that I was not prepared for this. And I hope you understand our really passionate feelings about your father.
Yes, I do. I appreciate that. And I wanted to say about in addition to our feelings, when he passed away, October 18th, 2008, I was back in Iowa. I was with him when he passed away. And over the next several weeks, I was there with Helena. And the letters, you wouldn't believe the thousands of letters that came to her home, or his and her home. It filled 2 suitcases full of letters of condolence and thankfulness for fixing my baby's feet, or thank you for teaching me the method so I can fix baby's feet, from doctors, from patients, from friends. It was amazing. I mean, just 2 full suitcases full of letters. And so he was appreciated.
He is. He still is.
Yes.
Thank you.
So if you have a cup of wine in your hand, now it's time
Yes, I
to.
do. I always do.
I've seen many people with a cup of wine. Also, Erika, do you want to?
Yes.
Thank you, Sonia.
A
Thank
bottle.
you. Thank you, Bill.
Well,
It's a great honor to have you here sharing these details about Dr. Ponseti, about his everyday in the life. And we really don't know the impact that this has in the heart of the families of the children treated, because we treat the child and we change the feeds, but all their lives change for all the life. And thank you very much for being here with us.
Well, you're welcome. And I wanted to mention also, and I forgot, I wanted to pay honor and tribute to Tom Cook, who talked to you last year and unfortunately passed away. And I just was shocked to find out that he passed away. He was a wonderful human being, and he was very dedicated and devoted to the Ponseti method. And I just wanted to say thank you, Tom, for writing your book and for all of your work.
Thank you.
Yes, so in Spanish, we say salud, Miguel.
Salud.
Dijeron copa de vino, Miguel, no botella.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. And
Bill.
happy World Clubfoot Day for everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jose. And thank you for all people who attended this meeting today.
All right,
It was very important for us.
thank you. Thank you for letting me
Okay.
part of it.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Goodbye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You just